Hello, and welcome to another segment of Cooking with Colbath. My name is Julie Colbath, and I am the coordinator of Civic Engagement in the Office of Student Life. And this is, I think, the 8th episode, which is crazy. Today we're going to be making some Korean beef tacos. Happy Taco Tuesday. And we're also going to be making some 3-ingredient peanut butter cups, which is a nice little treat to make, and it's pretty easy and quick. I'm excited about this Korean beef taco recipe. I've never tried it before, but I have had Korean beef tacos before, and they are super good, and this should hopefully only take about 15 minutes to cook. Let me tell you what we're going to be using for them. So we'll be using a pound of ground beef, some minced garlic. If you have garlic cloves, that works too. You can just mince them yourself. We're going to be using some ginger. I often don't buy fresh ginger. It just doesn't, I forget about it at the store. So I think spices are really nice because you can substitute the fresh ginger for the spice. And so in the bottom of the recipe, it tells you some different substitutions if you'd rather use the ground ginger or the granulated garlic. We're going to be using some brown sugar, which I did not get out. We're going to be using some hoisin sauce. You can make your own hoisin sauce. I've made it before. It's kind of like a combination of soy sauce and peanut butter and some sesame oil. But I've been trying to make some different dishes, and so I just ended up buying a bottle of the hoisin sauce. We're going to use some soy sauce, some Dijon mustard, some rice vinegar, and then a little bit of salt and pepper. For this, we're also going to be making a spicy mayo, so the recipe calls for mayo, unsurprisingly, some sour cream, which is interesting, but hopefully will give it a nice creamy flavor. Some sriracha, which is always good to have on hand. We're going to be using a lime, which is around here somewhere. It's hiding. Some garlic powder. I have a big jar, so I just put it into a little jar. And then we're also going to be using some salt and pepper. And so to top these, it suggests using thinly sliced cabbage, shredded carrots, sliced green onions, sliced jalapenos. I'm not going to do jalapenos. I'm not always the biggest fan of spicy. But I did get some like coleslaw mix. So this has the shredded cabbage and the shredded carrots that we'll want. You could also very easily do that yourself if you'd like. I find sometimes with cabbage, it can be hard to use it all. So sometimes it's nice to have these. And then we'll slice up a green onion to put on top as well. And then the peanut butter cups that we'll be making, you use chocolate chips. These are milk chocolate, but I think you could really use any chocolate you want. And then we'll be using some peanut butter, delicious. And we'll be using some powdered sugar. All right, so I'm gonna grab the brown sugar so I don't forget about it. And we can get started. So again, I think this recipe will be pretty quick, which I'm excited about. It's always nice to have different recipes in your back pocket that are really fast. And I know some of these ingredients you might not have on hand. I think sometimes it's nice to buy some of these things, right? Like I was talking about with hoisin sauce, like it's not like I use it that often, but then when I find a recipe, right, like it doesn't deter me from making something. You know, or you can make your own. Like I said, I've made it before with soy sauce, some peanut butter, some sesame oil, and a couple different spices, and some sriracha. So we're going to go over to our stove. So let me take you over there. Boop. I've got a large skillet. You don't need to cook one this large because we're really only cooking a pound of beef. We're really not adding much to it besides the sauce. This is just one of the only like non-stick skillets that I have, so I like using it for when I'm cooking meats like this so that they don't stick to the bottom. I'm gonna grab my ground beef. And like we talked about in the last episode, I'm just turning this on to medium heat. This was frozen, and I pulled it out this morning. I put it in a bowl with some cold water, and I changed it out every 30 minutes, so that way I didn't have to microwave it, and I didn't necessarily have to like pre-plan too much and put it in the fridge for a couple days to let it thaw. So I'm just going to cut this open because it does not want to peel. And then we're just going to put it straight in the pan. I'm going to get all the bits off, which my door is so bright you might not be able to see. Alright, I'm going to throw this away and then I'm going to wash my hands. Whenever you're dealing with raw meat, it's a good idea to wash your hands. There's just different bacteria and stuff that you don't want to get on anything else. So you can see our beef is in our pan. We're going to chop it up so that it is in like more of crumbles. And it might sort of still be sticking together, but it's fine. Once it starts to cook, you'll be able to crumble it a little bit more. I don't know about y'all, but I've been trying to use my slow cooker more often. The less that I can like be over the stove, that's really nice. The less I can turn my oven on, that's really nice. Do y'all have any slow cooker recipes that you can share? If so, throw them in the chat. I should share, there was one that I made a couple weeks ago that was this teriyaki chicken, which was super good. I had like very low expectations, but it was really tasty. All right. So I'm just going to chop this a little bit more. And then I'm just going to leave it for a second. So while that's cooking, we are going to combine our sauce for this. So let me grab all my ingredients. I'm going to put them on my little island behind me. Move this a little bit. And I know this can seem like a lot of random things. Hopefully, I mean, you might have soy sauce in your house. You might already have Dijon mustard. I think, right, like I said, it's good to kind of have some different stuff on hand because then you can make a lot of variations in your food without really having to have like too many different ingredients. So I'm just going to see. I should blow that up a little bit. So I buy minced garlic in these little containers all the time because then it saves me a step of having to peel my garlic and mince it. You can also, right, you might have a garlic mincer, those pretty easy too. So I normally do 1 teaspoon for clove, so it calls for 3 cloves. I'll throw 3 teaspoons in there. If there's a little bit more, I'm not mad about it because garlic is very good. We're gonna do, so the recipe at the bottom that's listed tells you some conversions for if you're using fresh versus like ground or dried. So this calls for a teaspoon of minced ginger. I'm gonna add 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground ginger. Like we talked about before, I think it's nice to have like a different, like a little bit of variety in spices, because then sort of like some of these sauces, you can make a lot of different things and really give your food flavor, even if it's like sort of more simple, like chicken and rice or something like that. Let's stir beef around a little bit so you can sort of see, and I probably will lose, you won't be able to hear me, but you can start to see it's browning, so let me show you. Starting to look good, so we're just gonna chop it up a little bit more, start to like flip it over so some of the pink sides can get the heat of the pan, because some of the other sides red have browned already. I can smell the ginger. Ginger can be a little bit strong, so if you're not a big fan of ginger, I don't know how it would impact it to like get rid of it, but just like start with a small amount, like I'm only starting with 1/8 of a teaspoon, and you can always add more later. So I'm gonna let that cook a couple more minutes and we'll go back to our sauce. So we added the ginger, we're gonna add the brown sugar, which I forgot again. So I think we talked about this last week too. When you're doing brown sugar, you want to make sure you pack the measuring spoon that you're using, or measuring cup. So this is 1 teaspoon. And there's 2. Alright. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. I think I might have said that there. This was a teaspoon. This is a tablespoon. Tablespoons, there's 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon, so tablespoons are a little bit bigger. So make sure when you're looking at recipes, you know which one is which. Oftentimes, if they're abbreviated, grab a spatula. Capital T will be tablespoon, little t is teaspoon, TBSP is tablespoon, TSP is teaspoon. I'm just going to get all the hoisin sauce off of there. Then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. Do y'all have any favorite taco recipes? Taco Tuesday, which is always exciting. It's fun to do a different version of a taco instead of what you might think traditionally, right? Like ground beef, cheese, lettuce, tomato. Alright, we added our soy sauce. I'm going to add a tablespoon of Dijon. There's our mustard. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of rice vinegar. I think with vinegars, a lot of them you can kind of exchange like pretty easily. Make sure you look it up before you do it, because some of them have different flavors, right? Apple cider vinegar can have a very strong flavor compared to other vinegars. Alright, so I'm going to throw this tablespoon in the wash. And then we can throw a teaspoon and this 1/8 of a teaspoon in there. And then we're just going to whisk this together. You could easily do this in a bowl. I just figured I'd do this in this glass measuring cup so you could see through it. I realize I don't really have bowls that are see-through. A lot of mine have color. So that's mixed. I'm going to leave that for a minute. We'll go back to our beef, which is browning nicely. So we have a couple spots that are still red. If you don't want it to cook as quickly, right, if you're trying to do a bunch of different things, you can just turn your heat down. Trying to break up some of the chunks so it's a little bit more crumbly. Do y'all have any favorite recipes that you made in quarantine? I feel like I've been trying to try a bunch of new recipes. The teriyaki chicken one, which I'll throw in the chat, is very good. I've also been enjoying, and I think I might have talked about it a few episodes ago, this like gnocchi skillet, which the gnocchi is like little potato dumplings, sort of like a pasta. And I add diced tomatoes, a little bit of cream or milk, spinach, Italian sausage, cheese. It's real good. Maybe we'll make that one day. Alright. Just a couple more chunks I'm trying to get smaller. But you can see that our beef is basically browned. Looks nice and cooked. So I didn't add any salt or pepper. I'm going to add some right now. So this is my dino pepper, my dino salt. Feel free to like add a little bit and then continue to add more, right? You don't want to overspice something and then it becomes too salty. So just make sure. I'm just going to pour this over the beef and then stir it, and we'll let it cook for a couple minutes. I like to use like rubber spatulas sometimes, like this one, to make sure I can really get all of the sauce out to give it a nice flavor. So we're just going to mix this around so it's evenly coated. And I turned my burner down a little bit so it's more at like medium heat. We're just going to let it sort of have this flavor simmer for a couple minutes. And while that's cooking, we can make our spicy mayo. Just getting a couple. There's still like some bigger chunks, but it's nice you can kind of cut them down later too. Okay. So let's go back over here. I'm going to put away my stuff for my sauce, and I'm going to grab my stuff for my mayo. We'll still use our salt and pepper. Just move up again a little bit here. I'm going to grab my cutting board. Alright. Great. So I already put a half a cup of mayo in this container. Again, I used this measuring cup so that you're able to turn that a little bit down. To see it while I'm mixing it, again, you can use any sort of bowl that you would like. So we've got a half a cup of mayo. We need 2 tablespoons of sour cream. We'll need half a tablespoon of sriracha. If you don't like it spicy, don't add as much sriracha. If you like it a little bit spicier, add more. One thing that the taco meat called for was red pepper flakes. Again, if you like spicy, add them. If you don't, don't. I didn't, obviously, but that's just because I like to be able to like control my own spice and let everybody else control their own spice so they can add their own later. I'm gonna add a half of a teaspoon of garlic. So again, this is just granulated garlic. You can buy this at the grocery store. One of the staple spices. You can also find this at the dollar store. The dollar store has some nice hidden spices. So we added our garlic powder. We're gonna add juice of a lime. So you wanna make sure you wash your fruit. So I'm gonna wash this quick. I'm also gonna grab a bowl from above. We're gonna stir this quick. Smells so good. All right. So our meat done. People have different tricks as to how they like to juice things. I've heard that if you roll like a lime or a lemon on the counter, sort of like this, that it helps when you're juicing it. That's what I normally do. Then I'm going to cut it in half, just so that I can squeeze it. I feel like with limes, you don't really get as much like seeds, right? But with lemons, the seeds can be pretty big. So I normally juice something into a bowl so that I can get the seeds out. So I'm just going to squeeze this into my little green bowl. You can see the juices coming out. If you have a juicer, you can use that too. I don't, so. And then sometimes I just like run my finger around the edge so that it gets a little bit more of the juice that might have gotten trapped in these little bits here. So that one's done. I'm going to juice this one. Do you have any tips for juicing fruit? Sometimes people have like those handheld juicers or the ones that kind of have like a triangle and you twist them in the middle. I don't have either of those, so I just do it by hand. All right, so we've got quite a bit of juice in here, which you probably can't see. We're gonna dump it in our spicy mayo. And then we're just gonna mix everything together. This is a little bit chunky, probably just from the mayo. So if you want it to be like super smooth, you could always throw it in the blender or like put your hand mixer into a bowl. And put a little bit of salt in here, a little bit of pepper. And then we just have some mayo, spicy mayo that we can drizzle over our tacos, which is great. So we'll move that over. You can see our meat is fully coated, fully cooked. So I'm gonna turn it off. That was real quick. I'm gonna let that sit. We'll chop up our green onion. And then we can just plate one. It's one of the few times, right, that I feel like I can actually plate something. So let me grab my green onion, take some of these things off. Right. There's my green onion. I'm gonna wash it, right, like we talked about before. Washing your fruit's always a good idea, no matter if you get conventional or organic, just because you don't necessarily know who's touched it in the store, who's touched it when it's transporting, so might as well. All right, then I want, this is a serrated knife, which is good for certain things, kind of like tomatoes, some different fruits. I'm going to use a different knife. So this is good for like quick chops. So we're going to do just like very quickly go down. And again, make sure you're comfortable with holding your knife, and you can make the claw if you want so that your blade doesn't cut your fingers. So I just normally do it really quick. And it's kind of this like up and down, like sawing motion. I like to make mine pretty thin. And so I'll just do it. You want to make sure you're like putting enough pressure down to cut through, so that when you like cut it, you don't have to like break it off, right? Like it's actually making these full cuts. And again, normally when I'm like scraping something on my cutting board, this is my blade side, this is not, so I'll scrape things with my blade up, just so that I'm not dulling the blade, but make sure you're careful that you're not hitting yourself or anyone else. All right, so we've got a nice little stack of our green onions, all chopped into little rings. So let me grab, we can kind of show you how you would plate these. I'm going to grab a plate. So this is our cabbage, and like I talked about before, you could buy cabbage and carrots and shred them yourself. I just find sometimes that when I buy cabbage, I don't always, I'm not the best at using it. So just to cut down on some waste and some time, I bought that pre-cut stuff. These are little taco shells, which I thought would be kind of cute. And it's nice, right, when you, I don't know, sometimes like a big burrito, it can be a little bit much. But you could definitely, these are a little bit smaller than I intended. You could definitely get bigger ones. And so what we'll do is we'll take our tortilla and we're going to put a little bit of beef on it. A little bit of beef. We'll put a little bit of cabbage. Ooh, this one's a big piece, so I'm going to leave that off so it's not something that I have to bite through. And then we can drizzle it with a little bit of our spicy mayo. And then we can top it with some of our green onions. So maybe not the most beautiful. I'm not the best at presentation. But there is our little Korean beef taco, which I'm really excited to eat. So I'll set that over there. We'll make our peanut butter cups, and then we'll be done. So I'm going to take all the things out of the way. You gotta be careful when you're carrying knives. Need our salt and pepper. Alright. So for these peanut butter cups, we're using peanut butter, powdered sugar, and chocolate. To melt your chocolate, you can either do that on the stove. It can be a little bit more consistent if you do it that way. I normally just microwave it because it's easier. So I microwave it in like 30-second increments to make sure that the chocolate doesn't burn. So I'm going to stick this in the microwave for about 30 seconds. While that's cooking, we can work on some other stuff. So the recipe tells you to sift the powdered sugar. To be honest, I don't always do this. Right, powdered sugar can get sort of lumpy, and so sifting it helps just make it like lighter and fluffier and like not as have clumps. I got my muffin pan. That's the microwave, so I'm going to grab it and we can see how far our chocolate got. You can tell for the most part this is still pretty much in the form. You can, if you move it around a little bit, right, you can sort of see that it's starting to melt. But I'm going to throw it in there for 30 more seconds. And again, that's milk chocolate. I think semi-sweet would be really good. I'm a big fan of dark chocolate. I think that would be amazing. You could easily do white chocolate. I'm not as much of a white chocolate person, but you could do it. So I'll just show you how to sift powdered sugar. I have a few different, not machines, but tools, I guess. So this is a a fine mesh strainer. This is more like can be traditionally what people use. So I'll show you how to use that in a second. The microwave is best, so we're gonna grab our chocolate. So you can see part of it's sort of melting and part of it still has form. I'm gonna see if I start to just whip it around, it starts to melt anyway. So right, look, melted chocolate, 1 minute. Alright, so we have that. I'm gonna grab my bowl. I'll do this for a sec. So when we're talking about sifting, right, like I said, a lot of the times people will use this to sift, which you can just put a little bit of the powdered sugar. Often people will sift with flour too. And so you can see some of it went through there already, but there are still some chunks. So then you just kind of tap this and the chunks would slowly start to break down. Just gonna throw those back in there. So if you have one of these, great way to sift. You don't. This was a treasure that came when I bought my house. Seems like an older thing where it has this like contraption where you can kind of pull this lever and it moves, so it can sift things as well. So right, little bits of snacks. I did not have one of either of those for a long time. So a lot of times I'll just use a colander. So this is sort of a smaller colander. It has a little bit of smaller holes. So I just dump my powdered sugar in here. And again, just sort of like the fine mesh strainer, just kind of hit it. And then it'll start to like go into the holes. I'm not too worried about it. I made these yesterday just to try to make sure that they would come out and it didn't look ridiculous. I didn't sift it, so if you don't want to, don't worry about it. So you're supposed to combine the peanut butter and the powdered sugar. So I'm going to throw the peanut butter in there. And then you could use a spatula, you could use a whisk, you could use a fork, and I'm just going to it's not going to be pretty, but I'm just going to kind of fold the peanut butter and the powdered sugar together until it's consistent. So this is just making the filling of our peanut butter cups. Do y'all have any like quick, easy desserts? I've been looking more for desserts that I don't have to turn on my oven. I feel like it's been really hot this summer, and recognizing that some people don't have air conditioning, right? It's hard to heat up your house. So, great. This is basically mixed. It's all the same. So again, I made these yesterday. And one of the, some of the comments suggested adding some crumbs of graham crackers. I'm going to add those today. Again, you don't have to add those. The other ones turned out great. I think it'd be interesting to try. So I had taken just a couple, like one full graham cracker, and crumbled it with my fingers. So I'm just going to add them in, and we'll see. We'll see if it's good. So again, I'm just going to mix it together so that they're evenly spread throughout. And one thing about this recipe, though, that I do have to mention is that you will need more chocolate than they say. I don't know how they thought that 1 cup was enough. I halved this recipe yesterday. That chocolate was not enough. So I have 1 whole cup right here to half the recipe again. All right, so we've got our peanut butter filling mixed. I'm gonna grab my muffin tray. And with these, you don't even need to spray the tins, I mean, if you were gonna put it directly in the tin, I would spray them, but I'm gonna use muffin papers. So we're just gonna drop them. The recipe says that it makes 6 for like a full recipe. I don't know if I found that to be true because I halved it yesterday and it made 5. So I don't know if I was doing something wrong or what the deal was. So you're going to want to put some chocolate on the bottom. I'm using a tablespoon, but it's not all coming out. Some of it's still sticking to the spoon. So I put it on the bottom. Sometimes it's hard to see how it looks for y'all. And then I'm just going to like spread it out a little bit so the bottom is fully coated. And then I'm going to take and add, I think it said like 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of the peanut butter filling. I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons. This is 1/2 tablespoon. So, and then you just drop that in the middle. My fingers are all full of peanut butter now. So let me bring this over to you so you can see. we've got our chocolate, our peanut butter in the middle, and then we're going to put more chocolate on top. So we're just going to add enough to cover the peanut butter. And you'll want to kind of smooth it out a little bit. I mean, that's mostly for your own presentation's sake. They taste the same regardless of how they look. So you can see, let me take these out. And now you can't see our peanut butter anymore. So you would just repeat this with however much you have left. If you have too much peanut butter filling, not enough chocolate, make more chocolate or eat the filling. It's delicious. So you would take this and you'd put it in your fridge. For an hour, just to chill. And so I saved one yesterday to show you all, so you can see the grand reveal. So not the most beautiful. I got some on the edge, but when you peel it, it's a peanut butter cup. Again, not the most beautiful on top. Let me cut it in half to show you what it looks like. Look how delicious that is. I'm a big fan of peanut butter cups. Someone suggested sprinkling a little bit of salt on top, which I think would be delicious. Nice sweet and salty combination. Yeah, but that's all I have for y'all today. If you have any suggestions or if you try these recipes, please let me know. Throw them in the chat. Even if you're watching this after it has premiered, I still get notifications and I would love to hear from you. If you have any suggestions on things that we should make, please let me know. I'm happy to try new things or to share some of the things that I really love to make. And I hope that y'all tune in. Feel free to check out the other videos on this site. There's lots of cool stuff. And enjoy your week. Have a good one, y'all.